I'd like to welcome you back to the channel. We have with us today a good friend of mine named Esther Deutsch. Hi, Esther.
Hi, Ari. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Now, what's interesting about Esther is it's another one of these hybrid interviews where we weren't sure which way to go. Do we interview her as a professional or do we interview her as a single? And we agreed that we are going to interview her as a single who's going to explain a little bit about how her career actually kind of has a funky connection to being single. Just one more thing I'll say, and then I'll hand it over to you, is that the thing about Esther that's super unique is that usually we talk about people like they're a motivational speaker. Esther is just motivational. That's her goal and her premise of her entire life. And I'm going to let her explain how this plays into who she is as a person. Hi.
Well, thanks, Ari. Now I don't know what to say because I don't know that describes me, but I think we're all doing our best, and hopefully, it's a piece of that. But I feel the same. I'm glad that our paths crossed. I think every person you meet, there's a reason for it. And I'm also of the belief that if we all, everyone needs something and everyone has something to give. So if we could find just a matter of pulling out what people's gifts are and then connecting the people who need what you have with what you have to offer. And then everybody will be happier. Like that's kind of my belief and what I want to have a part in. So.
Right. Unfortunately, not everybody feels that way, but if they did, the world would certainly be a better place.
There's enough of them. I'm coming to learn too that, eventually you live in a different world when you keep surrounding yourself with more and more good people. You vibrate differently. Like it's just, and I've been blessed at this point. I feel like I just kind of live in that world. So it's nice. So yeah.
That's great. Okay. So let's start off with this magazine that you were just featured in and how that connects to your occupation.
Sure. So whenever people ask me, what do? I always have a hard time answering that question because I like to do a lot of things. But when I say what pays my bills is I work in an IT and cybersecurity company as part of the leadership team. So part of my job is brand awareness and just getting the word out about what we do because we offer a service that everybody needs. So it's really the transactions happen as a result of a relationship, which again, my opinion is how everything happens or everything good. So as a result, I do a lot of networking. I do a lot of community building, and to me, they're sort of intertwined and similar. But that has led me to meet all kinds of people. And I also love I love to speak, I love to connect. And so through that work, I heard about this opportunity to submit and be nominated to put an article in a newspaper. And I've written a lot over the years. A lot of what I wrote, I've written way more than I've published. And I think I'm going to try to start to change that because I think I have a message, and the more that if it's in my head, it doesn't do any good in the earth or in the world. So it's about impact for me. It's about impact. And so if I can do more with what's inside my head, then I need to get it out. So that sort of was my goal. And I submitted this sort of as like a test, and thankfully it got accepted. So it's really exciting because I feel, I'm trying to get everything out of my head into systems that can help people. Like that's the goal, putting it on paper. So
what was the actual article?
So this one was about leadership and how to be a leader in your organization. I'm passionate about leadership. I'm passionate about a lot of things. I always say a lot of people can't find what they're passionate about. I have the opposite problem. I have a lot of passions and I have to just prioritize and figure out what's meant for me at certain times. One of my passions is leadership. And I think it's a lot of what led me to where I am today is just, I think people associate leadership with a title, or they wait to be given a title in order to take responsibility or ownership over something. Whereas I'm of the belief that if we're on earth and we notice a problem, we don't have a right to talk about it unless we're being part of the solution. And it's something I've always brought into the workplace too. Like if I'm going to complain about something or say an issue, it's fine if I have a solution. And I mention that in the same sentence. That's my rules. And anyone who works for me, like if there's no complaining, it's either like you have a problem and you propose a solution, or we don't do any good by dwelling on it. So long-winded answer, but that's kind of.
No, not at all. You're 100% right. I mean, so many people complain, and this isn't just about work or an article. It's about life. You're either going to find a way to see the roses, or you're going to find a way to see the thorns. And that's just how your life is going to flow. And I'm not saying life is easy. Life is full of challenges. Holy cow. But it's a very, very good attitude. And I think that your employees and your coworkers and anybody you work with, you're always going to accomplish more with optimism, even if there is a problem. Yelling at somebody or, whipping them, with words, it's never going to solve it. So if you're able to have that optimistic attitude, that's great.
I think a combination of optimism and reality. I like to think that I could have my head in the clouds, but I'm also down to earth and practical. And so I think you can be positive without, negating that there's issues. Like there's always challenges and things to improve. It's just like, do you look at it as that hinders us from moving forward? Or is that these are ways for us to become even better and stronger? If we fix them, we're going to go further and use them as a way to get ahead. So I think it's like you said, it's how you deal with it, but also it's not to say there aren't issues. This world is so full of flaws. It's unbelievable. But I think that's my purpose on life for sure. Both as a Jew and as a human being, is to make it a better place. Like my goal in life is to leave the world a better place, and I found it. That's all I need to do. So it's going to still be flawed, but I hope it's going to be less flawed than before I entered it, And so you're doing that. So I know we share this. Yeah.
No, this is literally ethics of the fathers. It's not your job to complete, but it's also not your job to avoid. You have to do your part in it. And the thing is that, I think that, a lot of people, well, basically, there's two types. There's the kind of person that is like, okay, I'm part of this generation and we deserve this and we deserve that and we have a right to start looking at things differently and our opinions count. That's fine. That's one way, not my way. And then there's the other way that's completely against it. Like, what's wrong with the old style and what's with all this openness and acceptance of things that might seem trivial to me? The way I look at it is we're living in a time like never before, where because of this environment, you can try new things that have never been tried before. As the most obvious example to me, just to keep it simple, because of my age, I'm 49, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. This was like on the cusp of psychology. I lived in a time where if you expressed yourself, you were a loser. Now, if you don't express yourself, you're the weirdo. And so you need to take the times you're living in for the value it has. And I think that there's this incredible opportunity, given the fact of openness and expression and psychology and feelings, that you can accomplish so much this way. And it's a wonderful thing to roll with. And it seems that that's what you're doing.
I appreciate that. I never had that perspective. That's a new perspective for me. So thank you for that. I love it. It's great. And, it's easy to focus. I'm somewhat millennial. So I remember back in New York when I was working in an office, it's been a while, but I was once hearing in the elevator two non-millennials talking about how awful millennials are. And I remember thinking in my head, trust me, I hate that they sign up for an event and don't show up either and don't call or text and think that's okay. But I also understand that they have an innovation, this desire to invent. I remember thinking that in the elevator, oh, wow, this is what it looks like when you're negative about something. And yes, they suck, but there's so much good that we bring too, And I was I wanted to answer, but in my head, I was just all right, millennials are never going to help you if you have that mindset about them, so.
Yeah. Everybody has their time and place.
Exactly.
And I think it's about using it to your advantage.
Exactly.
Now,
yeah.
This was supposed to be getting to know you in regards to being single, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around. But as you said, God has his plan in the right time, in the right place.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you see, given your lifestyle, your experience, your profession? You were going to give me a perspective on the singles world that you thought would be kind of an interesting tie-in to what you do. So let's have it, because I thought it was an interesting twist.
Yeah, I'm still developing. See, I'm in it now. So it's a very interesting, journey. It's a journey. I'm still on it, and I'm single. So it's going to be, I'm excited to see where I end up and how it pans out. Because all I know is, based on what I've seen of my life so far, it's going to be a journey. It's going to be something fun. So my perspective is just work on myself, do what I need to do, live my best life, and then it'll come when it comes. And it's going to be an adventure. But I think part of what I was thinking about when we talked was just, I had the, I guess, privilege of like connecting through my connecting people, at a young age. Actually, I made a couple of matches, just putting people in the same place. And that's my favorite way to date. And like how I see the best thing I can do for somebody is not say like you date them. It's actually just create an environment where two people can meet on their own naturally. That's how I like to go about it. So I call them my kids now, but a couple of them now have children, and like we keep in touch. And I'm not super like tight with all of them, but I still, they feel like family to me. And just, I'm putting this out there because I think if I talk about it, it eventually change. But something that bothers me that I don't sleep at night is that I don't make more matches. I know hundreds and thousands of people, and I feel like I should be able to do a better job of putting them together, and just like I would want somebody to do for me. So I'm still trying to, I'm like, I don't have a solution. I just sit on it all the time and it bothers me. And I'm always mentioning it because I'm like, someone in my network is going to have an idea that I can like help with. But I used to say, if I get super wealthy, I'm going to just like throw parties just to have like, I'm going to just make criteria to make sure the right people attend and the right ratio of boys and girls. But I was like, I'm going to solve it. But then I realized that it's not a problem of place. It's a problem of the people participating. So I kind of like let that idea go, but it's anyways, something that I want to solve and do something about at some point when I can. But I didn't answer your question. It's just how I feel about dating and being in this world. Yeah.
Well, no, I think it is an answer because it flows with everything else. It's a matter of taking responsibility. When you take responsibility for something, then you can make a change. If you blame the other person, they might be wrong, but now you're screwed.
Yeah.
I am a massive believer in the Shabbos table, in the Sabbath table. I said this over and over in so many of these shows that like, if you want to be religious, do it on your own time. You want to be super Orthodox, great, but don't use that as an excuse not to have guests over at your table. And don't even mention it. You don't have to always take credit for everything. Just have people over. If you know there's a guy and a girl that might make a good match, have a couple of his friends over, a couple of her friends, set the environment, and don't even, sometimes you ruin something by giving too much information, you know?
Yeah.
Like play the long game.
Yeah.
And I like this idea that you're saying. You're saying throw parties, but you don't. I mean, I'm not trying to change your words, but to me, it doesn't sound like you're.
No, I don't mean specifically party. No,
you mean put people together in the same room.
Connection.
And it's so important. And I think the community is, we like, I keep saying this over and over, and I'll keep saying it. We have Hatzalah, the volunteer ambulance. We have
100%. Yeah.
We have, we have volunteer, liaisons to the police. We even have, if you have a flat tire, some knight in shining armor will come and help you, even if you're another guy, within 5 minutes. But we have two things. Either, especially, I mean, you're in Florida, it's a little bit more normalized, although maybe a little bit more gaudy. So you guys have your own challenges, gaudy meaning like, image driven. In New York, we have an issue that the singles are either too wild or too nerdy. So people don't want to go to these events. You got to make it cool. You got to make it mainstream.
100%.
You got to make it out there. Florida, you guys have a different issue. I think you guys do have a lot of, adhesive. There's a lot of friendships. There's a lot of connections. But then, problem is, if you show up with a Mercedes in New York, you're considered a show off. If you show up with a Mercedes in Florida, you're considered poor. So, we all have our challenges, but you gotta keep an environment going. You can't let it's like my friend used the word many, many years ago. He ended up getting married, which is shocking. Someone took him, but that's besides the point. But he said, the problem is, if you go to this, well, that was back when the singles were all in the city. Now the whole, it's all changed. Now there's more singles because of the divorce world in Brooklyn and Five-Town. Yeah. But he said, the problem is, if you go to the city, you get caught up in the partying. And if you stay in Brooklyn, you get caught up in the mothballs. And I was like, that's just brilliant. That is such a good, like, that's it. That's everything described in one sentence. And we need something. And I'll keep saying it again and again, and I would be happy to get involved. I would happy to do whatever I can. But in the meantime, until they find some kind of and I don't just mean this for Jews. This is a
You're
global problem.
yes, it's everyone.
We
Yeah.
need, if we want to keep having, the family environment, we need
100%.
family. You said you like to travel. You can go to cities where it's just the norm not to see any children. You walk around and all you see
So
is
true.
adults.
So
That's
true.
that's not normal. That's not even enjoyable for adults. Everybody loves to see a cute little kid once in a while or
So
more.
true. All right, I watched a couple of your interviews, and the one that you did with the rabbi, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, with the app.
Right.
But what
Rabbi Rosenfeld from Queens. Yes.
I don't know the rabbi, but what I love is the fact that he wants to do something and he's doing something about a problem that he identified. And it's not something that affects him. Like, he's obviously a special person, but I love that. I think that's the key. And that's why people are like, oh, how's dating in Florida? Oh, isn't it better here? And I'm always like, I laugh. I think it's hilarious. You think that I wish the problem was only in a certain city or state, right? Then we'd have everything solved, but it's not a place issue. It's a people issue. If you want to say it's an issue, it's like, I think we need to just, like you're saying, like people like you, we need to just care more. We need to look out for each other. I think that's a struggle of our generation in general, not just with dating, and it translates into dating. It's like the same reason why you get ghosted, or, I mean, I could tell you thousands of stories. I don't want to, because like, I'd rather focus on the people who are amazing that I've met, but like, of like people who commit and then don't show up. It's the same. I hold interviews, the same thing. We'll have people doing third round of interviews and not show up and not text, not call, right? Like the whole ghosting thing. And to me, it's like, that's just a matter of, it's a disrespect and a not care. And it's something that we need to work on ourselves to be better people. And then the dating, I think, will follow. It's kind of my belief. So yeah, but.
Well, okay, so two things. First of all, as far as that app, I loved it. And that's why I grabbed the opportunity to interview him, because just the idea of something novel and different, I love it. And second of all, so it's funny, a bunch of people in different interviews have brought up this ghosting thing. The problem with ghosting is that it's not really a problem as much as it's a symptom. Now, I know that doesn't sound, that's not very soothing. When it happens to you, it's a problem. But the truth is that it's something that, like, first of all, you don't know the reason why the person did it. Could just be a jerk. Could be something happen. But more than that, I think that people have learned behaviors, especially in the singles world, from the way they were treated. And this is very, very key. And I don't, you're not the person I need to tell this to, but I'm just going to say it so that it's out there for people who need to hear it.
Yeah.
In life, you're either going to learn from your mistake and be better, or you're going to become sour and you're going to be worse. And you have to protect yourself like you are your own child. If somebody screws you over and you say, wow, that really hurt, and then the next time you're able to react to not do the same thing to somebody else, you've become a better person. If somebody does something to you and then it's so little to you that now you can do it to someone else, that's where ghosting probably comes from. And it's just, you're just a worse person than you were, not you, but you want to be a better person for every single action. You want to win in life. You want to go to heaven. I mean, really, that's all we're here for, is to win. That's all there is at the end of the day. And ghosting, as well as all these other things that people do, I think that these are, they're learned reactions. Also, when I meant don't be religious at somebody else's expense, don't think to yourself, oh, I have an Orthodox table and I'm very frum religious, and I have a child and they can't see people flirting at the table. Bull. There is no way you're going to convince me your child is going to grow up to be any worse because she saw a little flirting going on. No freaking way. That's not the God that I believe in. If you invite people and things are going well, you got to look out for other people. We're all in this together, and that's how I see it.
All right, I don't need to say anything else. You've got all the wisdom. All the wisdom.
I don't know.
Actually, so what I mentioned before about people meeting, that was through an organization that I was able to help begin that. We faced, I'm mentioning it in this context because I faced a lot of pushback from certain Jewish leaders who felt that it wasn't right to have, girls and boys mix and meet each other in a public place and set it up that way. And so whether or not you agree or not doesn't really matter. You as in like whoever's hearing this. I don't want to get into politics, but I felt what you're saying. That's all I'm saying. And that's why I felt it was the right thing that I was doing at the time. And so I went ahead anyway. And I had my mentors who pushed me to keep going. But it was very interesting. And there were definitely times where I had doubts. And then I look back now and I just see how much good came from it, and the matches that were made and the kids that were born, and how hard it is, being here sometimes now. And I'm just like, thank God, I followed what I thought was the right thing to do, which is the reason I did it. And look where we are. So, and again, I mean, I don't want to discredit, there might have been intentions. It's hard. You never know what could have happened the other way, if you didn't do what you did do, but I do know the good that came, and I'm human. And so I made the best decision I could, given what I knew. But yeah, good things came. And so I think, and that was what you're saying was my belief and the reason I continued to do what I did. So I think
Absolutely.
You're on point. Yeah.
Thank you. It's funny, and I am totally against people that knock rabbis. I am not that type at all. I am I was raised to respect the religion, respect the rabbis, even if you don't like it. There is one issue though. There is a but.
There's always a but. There's always one.
Yeah. The problem is that as amazing of a religion as Judaism is, we're very reactive. And the best example I can think of is that when I was a kid, if you used Art Scroll, which is a type of Talmud for those who don't know what Gemara is, and it has English, we would get beaten. Like, we would seriously get in a lot of trouble. Nowadays, if a kid were to study, they'd be so enthralled, so excited. And it's like, imagine if they encouraged it ahead of time. Same thing growing up. Remember, well, you're younger, but we used to hang out in Woodburn and all these places upstate, and we would get in trouble like, oh, you went to town. And now look what happened. They took town away. And so people are into marrying. People are going to clubs and bars. Not that that's bad, but those people who are more Orthodox might not necessarily have done that if they would have allowed them that little bit of trouble, that little bit of let out. So this is a problem that's everywhere in our religion. If you take a look, is that it's very reactive because they try to stay so conservative, which is understandable, but I don't blame you for going with your gut.
Balance. I always say, I think it's the hardest line to cross. I think that's why so many Jewish people do kind of lean sometimes more traditionally, because I think it's harder to be in that middle ground where you open yourself to some things or you open yourself to some people. It's a much harder place to be, and people like easy, right? They want to be in their comfort zone. I think it takes somebody special, and also somebody who's willing to risk a little. It's like a little bit riskier to ride that middle line. I call it middle line, but like where you have balance, because I think Judaism is the biggest, from what I've seen of it, it's the biggest proponent of balance. Everybody has different ideas of what balance is, but I think it's also different for every person. I think that's also what's hard. We have a religion that is somewhat systemic. It's also so individual, so it's hard to say that, but like, I think we've socialized it to make it that it's like a one size fits all, when I feel like for me, Judaism is so not that way. And how could it be when we all have our own experiences and lens? It's not even possible. So I think that's the problem. We're trying to fit everyone into about, like, even with what you're saying, like the exposure level, I think that's different for every child. And I feel like that's part of the job of like a parent and community, is to hold space for the different needs. I know that's not so realistic, which is a different story, but at least we could agree that that's what we're supposed to be doing. So we can't really say that like not exposed, like you're so like, black and white. People are so complex. It's like,
yeah. And there's actually another Jewish saying for it, Chanoch lenar al pi darko, that you're supposed to raise a child on their path. You don't raise one child the way another child's supposed to be raised. You're supposed to be intelligent enough to know how to raise a child. And if that's the case, that means we're all different, and it's very difficult. Yeah. We can talk for hours.
I know. I was like, wait, I was listening to a podcast the other day of like a Jewish influencer. I won't say who, but and I somehow it drew me in. I don't even know why it came up on my targeted ads. I just like got all into it because they were so right. It was actually, I think it was somebody who was a sex addict, and he came and he was speaking on, like, I noticed it because he was speaking on like what appeared to be a very religious show. And I was like happy that they were talking about things that he kept asking, like, what could I say? What could I not? You can tell he really didn't want to, go deeper than he was supposed to, but he did a great job, and he made a lot of points similar to what you're saying, that like, this is a reality, and, we can shun it all we want, but people need to hear this. And there's a message for certain people, that kind of thing. And he made such a good point that he said something like, people were like, but it's scary, what's going to happen. And he's like, you had me. He's like, I was in the system for 15 years. I was in a Jewish school, whatever. He's like, you had me all this time. He's like, that was your time. Like, you could have done whatever you want. He's like, I came out, and he wasn't like blaming his diction. It wasn't even, I don't even know if it was him or the one who was interviewing who said this. It was in the same context, just to make that clear. But he was like, it didn't work. For whatever reason, I came out and now I have these issues, or I'm having whatever struggles with religion. He's like, so now I get to do it the way that I think is for me to do it for me. Because, he was talking about meditation, that he meditates, and people say it's not religious and it's not, he can't meditate. And he's like, what's wrong with like breathing in and out? It brings me closer to God. Like, that's my way of like connection. And I take space and then I come back in. And he's like, he said he got a lot of slack for it. And he was like, he's like, I did the Jewish prayer for years, and for whatever reason, it didn't work for me. And this is a way of me. He's like, I come closer to God after I'm done than before, so like.
Well, what you're bringing up is a totally valid, completely, it's another issue. And that is that we're not living in the times with the leaders that we had just moments ago. When I was a kid, again, as a Jew, we had Reb Moshe Feinstein, we had Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky, we had Rav Pam, we had, like even the second and third tier of rabbis, like were just way, way beyond the scope. And unfortunately, our world, and I think this is in general, again, I'm not pointing at Jews, I'm not Jew knocking, just you and I are Jews, so we can only speak on our experience. But I see in the outside world, things have become more diluted, and we've lost our way, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because it's not that the school system failed him necessarily. It's that the school system might not be on their game. I mean, the world is just not where it was. You know the joke they say, right? That like 40 years ago, a teacher would ask their student, what's 5 plus 5? 30 years ago, the teacher would ask the student, what's 5 plus 5, and give them a pen and a paper. 20 years ago, they would give them a calculator, and like lately, they just take the calculator and do it for them. The world is changing, and it's a fine balance, because we're certainly going down. We're not as intelligent. I mean, we believe this as a faith, that we're not as great as our predecessors. But on the other hand, we're not necessarily being led the way we're just. We're weak. I don't know how else to say it. We're not on the levels we were, and these schools may have failed him because they may have not have known what to do or how to handle him. Sometimes out of strategy, sometimes out of the lack of strictness. And it's a shame, because this is going to continue. I mean, this is how the world is headed, is that unfortunately, we don't have the leaders we used to have. And it's more like the wealth and the powerful are calling the shots. And it's tough. It's sad.
Look at politics, it's not any different. So, it's actually all political. I actually, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's this thing about social media. There was always politics. It's just now we get to see it. People look at politics, they're like, oh, wow, we've never seen anything like Trump and Biden and this and that. Are you kidding me? It was all going on. We just didn't have, an opportunity to look through. Yeah, we have a glass wall now, and it's we get to see it all and be the judges, have opinions. It's just a different world. What were you going to say?
I don't remember, but it'll come back. I was going to say I went to social work school actually in the city during the election. So I don't remember what I say about that, but it just occurred to me when you were talking about social media and politics. So, but definitely, again, I don't think like politics is the issue. It's the humans behind it. It's how we interpret what we see. Do we look at the news? That's exactly what, like, do we feed our own? We have a belief, and then we go look at the news that feeds that belief, right? Or like the same about people. Like, do we ask the actual, like I always say too, I feel like people, they hide behind the social media. Like that's for me, one of the challenges I see with it personally is just like people say things that I think if you put the two of them in a room, I mean, I know I've been told things that like, I'm like, if you just I don't respond because I'm like, if we were just in a room, you wouldn't feel comfortable saying that because I'd be there smiling up at you. I'd be like, oh, hey, so nice to talk to you. How do you really feel about my, and they'd be like a deer in headlights, So I think it's just like, it's easier to just fill it out on social, but if the people were like in a room together, they would never, I don't think our level of respect has sunk that much. I think we would have some kind of shame.
Yeah, it takes away the filter
Yes.
between the brain and the mouth.
Yeah. So, and also when you see someone in front of you, like also just like making assumptions about other people, like race wise or religion wise, like it's so different when you just go and talk to the people. I found that very interesting. Like I grew up in Pennsylvania in Scranton, a small town. So I went to both rallies, Obama and McCain, actually. They both came to my city and I thought it was a cool opportunity to meet somebody who might be famous. So I went. And there you can get very close up. And the demographic of people who attended both rallies, I remember I was young, but it struck me so deep of just like there was like, of course, like the elderly people and then the very rowdy like college kids. And like, I don't remember where I was going with this, but yeah. Oh, and I was thinking that like, they're just, everyone's just kind of yelling. And that's what I was to say about the social work school too. I remember thinking I was all about the rallying and, rights. And I'm always just like, if every person who was out there yelling, whatever they want to yell, because I don't even want to go there, would actually do one action to help the cause that they're yelling about, I felt we wouldn't need to yell because the solution would be solved, in my opinion. I always felt that way. So I'm like, I love rallies. I think it's great. We need to like raise awareness. And if there's an issue, we need to call it out. But I don't think we would need to do that if we were taking the steps to, that's sort of back full circle to what we were started out with, that like, the words are great, the intentions are great, but it's the action that makes the difference at the end of the day.
Right.
So, I think yeah.
Yeah, I think that we have to realize that we're never going to be able to fix what's broken by going back. You fix what's broken by working with what you have. So it's just a little bit of a different strategy, like than trying to go back to the way things were 10 years ago. That's just never going to happen.
Oh, exactly. And what's the point? I feel there's so much there's so much in front of us. Like it's exciting. There's this whole amazing, people are always like, my number one question I get is like, what do you think about AI? I'm like, I don't know. What do you think about coffee? Like, what do you think about chocolate? It could be amazing. It could make you fat. Like, I don't know. It depends what you do with it. Like, what do you mean? What do I like? It's here to stay. Like, let's figure out how to make it work for us,
Perfect. Anyways, I think we could just talk forever. Yeah. So I'm gonna just end off by saying that the point of the show was to give you some exposure and to let people know if anybody's interested, they should comment. There'll be information in the description below how to, get a hold of you through me in a safe way. And, if there's interest, to make a match. But somewhere along the line, we got sidetracked, and this is like a hybrid show.
Way more fun.
Yeah. It was supposed to be like 10-15 minutes. You're not feeling well, so at least I think, you seem to be feeling
way better, Ari. I told you, I knew that was going to happen. That's the real reason I showed up.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Ari. Thank you for having me.
And I have to say that please like, subscribe. But the thing is that when it comes to these shows, really, really more than anything else, please comment, because I really would love these kind of shows to become more and more interactive, because there's so much to turn over and analyze. As long as we don't have any trolls or haters, you're all welcome. Let's hear all the comments. All right. Thank you so much, Esther.
Thank you, Ari. Really appreciate it.